Hey, welcome everyone to Next CoLabs, the AI Executive Briefing. Own your future, why waiting is not a strategy. Really great to have you all join us from all over the world. I'm Micheal Morrissey. I'm the founder of Next CoLabs, and I'm your host today. We have a great session planned. We have 4 amazing speakers from Next CoLabs who will answer really this foundational question. How do you become an AI-powered company? Today, we will lead you through the threshold, the before and after. I think it's very palpable. We can all experience this moment. 2023 was really the year of AI. And here we are ready for 2024. And how do we navigate? How do we steer our company to become AI-powered companies in 2024? We have 4 speakers. We got Charlene Lee, who is a strategic advisor for Next CoLabs, a New York Times bestselling author of The Disruption Mindset, followed by Gary Bolles, who's my co-founder at Next CoLabs and the chair of the Future of Work at Singularity University. And he's the author of The Next Rules of Work. And we had Brad Rochefort, who's the director of strategy here at Next CoLabs and our AI tool guru. And then finally, our CEO, Vella, will also join us and kind of bring it all home with a series of ideas about how to basically use the power of practice to implement how to become an AI-powered company. Next slide, please. So disruption plus AI and Charlene Lee. Next slide. Charlene Lee is, again, the strategic advisor with Next CoLabs, and she has recently written another book that will be coming out in a few months called Threats, Bets, and No Regrets, How to Create a Winning Generative AI Strategy, and it's slated for release in early 2024. And the book provides a practical 90-day AI strategy roadmap for organizations to transform into AI-powered orgs. And it's actually the framework that we've been working with Charlene to develop that we use to help guide you through this significant transformation. Charlene, let's talk about what's gone on. This book was written, The Disruption Mindset, in 2019. Fast forward like 4 years, we've had November 2022, the AI moment, and then we had a whole year of AI. What does disruption mindset plus AI look like? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you for that kickoff. The way I think about it, this is the biggest disruption we've seen in decades. Again, I've been in the technology and business space for 30 years now and have covered much of it as an analyst and author, everything from the rise of the internet to social media, mobile, digital transformation. And I've never seen anything but the potential for transformation as AI, and especially this version of generative AI, because it's so democratizing. It is hitting all parts of our business at the same time. And on top of it, the speed at which it is evolving is just breathtaking. So it is very, very disruptive, and especially because anybody with a device can pick it up and use it. And so you can't turn it off. So the way I think to your question is, how do you build an AI-powered company in 2024? Because 2023 was all about just figuring out what it does. But I think it's so many of the things that we're seeing here today is that the speed at which it's moving, the job potential displacement and the workforce transformation that's happening. And then also, very importantly, it just raises up existential issues, ethical questions, responsibilities of AI, and how you think about it. So when I think about it, there's 3 ways I think about the disruption mindset, which is, again, thinking about what the future looks like, your strategy through the lens of your customers, through your leadership, and then also through your culture. I think here we go. So when I think about seeing the future, when everything is changing so quickly, how do you form an AI strategy that is grounded in something? And so in the 90-day plan, we really talk about starting with foundational principles. What are your visions and mission, your values? What is the core business strategy of how you develop competitive advantage? And how is generative AI going to support the competitive advantages that you have, or even threaten them? And so the biggest mistake I see companies doing now is they're looking at all the use cases of how generative AI can be used, finding some easy starting points, which is a great way to do it. But then you're kind of down in the weeds and you're not looking at generative AI as a strategic transformational force. And so when you can lay those foundations, look at the strategy through the lens of your future customers of how they will use these technologies or want to be engaged with these technologies, then you have a fighting chance of creating a longer term strategy that will take the power of AI. Leadership is going to change significantly. And the more disruptive the change and the transformation, the more the leadership has to create a movement, because that's how disruption and movements are sustained, is when other people are carrying the mantle of leadership along with you. And so with generative AI, the thing that's extremely interesting is that it's highly democratized. Again, that anyone can use it. And by distributing the responsibility and making sure that people understand how they can use it, then you're harnessing the power deeply and across the entire organization, and not just with an inner sanctum of experts. And then finally, I think culture is significantly going to change. With any transformation, you're looking at your beliefs and your behaviors changing with that too as well. So just who has the power and the ability and the agency to make decisions around AI? Again, if it's in the hands of all the people who are actually doing the work, are they the ones who are going to be able to set the direction at which this technology is going to be used? And I raised the whole issue of ethics and responsibility as a starting point. It is also the endpoint you want to be. You want to make sure that if everyone across the organization has a firm foundation on what does it mean to use AI in a responsible way. What does that look like? We talk about ethics. We want to be fair. Well, what does fairness look like in your business? We typically don't talk about ethics and responsibility. We just assume it happens. We're ethical, of course, right? But in my work with a company recently, we came across a question about how transparent they should be about their use of AI with their customers. And they asked me, should we do A or B? And my response to them was, what do your values, what are your ethics, your sense in your foundational responsibility of AI, those guidelines that you haven't written yet, now you see why it's so important to have them, how do they inform you about how to make these decisions? So we've never had to deal with these questions before. And so I think as to be an AI-powered company in 2024, you have to think very strategically and also be having these really grounded principles in order to move fast. You got to go slow at first in order to go fast at the speed at which this transformation is happening.
You talk about the big gulp moment. That's something that you're almost famous for. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you make that sort of foundational shift? And I think one of the parts of the recipe is burn the boats. Like, it is that big a shift to move from almost like before and after. I'm a company, and that every company, even as Kevin Kelly in The Inevitable in 2016, has to move through that threshold to become an AI-powered company. It's that big of a moment.
Right.
What are your thoughts around that?
And the thing is it defies logic. I mean, you can talk about all the logical reasons you should do this. And if fundamentally your top executives just do not believe, understand these technologies, it's really hard to move the heart in these directions because it's just too big and too scary of a decision to have to make. And so the only way you can get to that big gulp is to point to inevitable shifts that are happening in the marketplace, which is why I put such a big focus on that future customer. When the facts and the understanding of that future customer through all the research and the work that you're doing to try to understand them, when those facts are staring you in the face, you have no choice but to look at that big gulp decision and make that hard call of whether you're going to pursue that future or ignore it.
I mean, you already
and it's
see
a choice.
that.
It has to be a choice.
Yeah. I mean, 2023 is enough evidence that this isn't going away. If anything, it's on that hockey stick. Things, and then finally, just this idea of continuous disruption. Perhaps, pre-AI, it would be a one-time disruption, like with Netflix, from something in a box to a streamer. And how culturally within organizations, deep into the culture, how to foster that sort of sense of continuous disruption, almost innovation comes into the center of a company.
Right. And I think Netflix is a great example, Michael, because we look at their transformation from CD-ROMs and so in an envelope to streaming. Once they started streaming, they realized they had to stay ahead of the game. So you look at the streaming wars, it was about original content and signing stars and directors. And so the fight continues to figure out who your future customer is, how that's shifting. So when you look at organizations that are really good at disrupting themselves over and over and over again, they continuously look for that future customer. They look at the changes they have to make, and they're making these changes all the time. They never stop. Now, what's interesting is they go through cycles. They sprint, and then they coalesce around a new center, and then they sprint again. And those cycles are very, very fast. Whereas in larger organizations, when you think we're going to gear ourselves up, do this big transformation, one and done, okay, we're good for a couple of years. That's not going to be sustainable. We're talking about a new way of working. Yeah.
This is a great segue to our next speaker, Gary Bolles. This idea of it's not a one-time change. You have to prepare for continuous change now. Our co-founder of Next CoLabs, my partner, Gary Bolles, who's the chair of the future of work at Singularity University. So great to have you here. That was one of your best colleagues who is handing the baton to you, Gary. We've got disruption kind of like framed out with Charlene. We know, and she's got a sturdy roadmap on how to steer and navigate the future. But mindset, skill set, tool set is something that I think every organization and company already knows. That's kind of like baked in. That's a great way to kind of navigate your organization with that triad. What does that look like when you take that triad and then you kind of pass through that threshold that everyone's got to go through? What does that look like when you add AI? What's the recipe?
Absolutely, Michael. So thank you so much for setting the table, and it's always an honor to follow my great friend Charlene Lee. As she says, we often complete each other's sentences, so I'm going to complete a few of her sentences. I'm just going to continue some of the thoughts that she was talking about. So I think the disruption mindset is obviously just exactly the right kind of positioning to be thinking about the impact of these tools. Like Charlene, I've seen decades worth of cycles in Silicon Valley, and asked tons of friends and colleagues, is this time really different? And the answer is yes, it's significantly different. So let me just offer a couple of thoughts then about how we as humans navigate disruptive change, and especially now in what Michael calls the AI moment, what I often label as the AI tsunami, this continual wave after wave of technology and software updates that are just continually crowding our headlines and challenging each of our individual ability to be able to continue to adapt. First off, the subtitle of my book, The Next Tools of Work, is the mindset, skill set, and tool set to lead your organization through uncertainty. And if there's any word that comes up again and again nowadays with a lot of business stakeholders, when they think about continually helping their organizations to navigate disruptive change, it's uncertainty. It's the fog down the highway is so thick, it's very, very difficult often to see what's just around the corner, and especially with these tools continually updating. And so what I'm suggesting is that we instead have a change in our mindset. Next slide, please. So I actually generated, I think we need to back up a little bit. So, because yeah, it jumped. So thank you. So I actually generated this, I actually asked ChatGPT to suggest a prompt several months ago of what would embody mindset, skill set, and tool set with AI, fueled by AI. And the whole idea was, well, a creative process where technology is in a very symbiotic relationship, but the human is the one in charge. And so to all the discussion earlier about human centricity, I think it's really important that each of us has this commitment that what we're trying to do is to navigate disruptive change to help our organizations to continually transform, but that our commitment across the board has to be no human left behind. Our intention has to be that we're going to help everybody be able to continually navigate a world of disruptive change. So what does that mean with mindset, skill set, and tool set? Next, please. So I often say the difference between these. If I waved a magic wand and you're looking up at a mountain, I gave you all the skill set of a mountain climber, but you have none of the mindset, you wouldn't climb the mountain. But if we flip it and you have all the mindset of a mountain climber and none of the skill set, you still would want to climb the mountain because you would believe that you could deal with uncertainty. You could continually solve problems that you'd never seen before. However, ideally, we have both that mindset and skill set, and it's empowering us through a tool set. In this case, artificial intelligence, machine learning, large language models, the whole soup that we tend to lump into AI. And so what we need are strategies to help each of us to be able to apply those in our organizations and to help people throughout the organization to be able to navigate change. That's really the intention of these transformations, is that we're going to help every single person to be able to have the mindset, skill set, and tool set that they need. Next, please. So as Michael's fond of saying, just add AI. So what do we mean by mindset plus AI? What these tools allow us to do, in many cases, we're lumping a lot of technologies under one label, but we talk especially about the constantly changing tool set of artificial intelligence, large language models, generative AI, the Midjourneys, ChatGPTs, and Claudes of the world. What we have is this new capacity for experimentation, for generating creative new ideas, for creating new value that we hadn't even thought of before, ways that we might be able to, as individuals, to solve new problems we hadn't encountered before, and ways we might collaborate together. I know this is something Michael will talk about, to be able to leverage each of our own superpowers enabled by this new tool set to be able to solve new problems as groups. And then obviously for each of us as individuals, as well as for organizations, a continuous process of growth, a growth mindset that allows us to be able to continually not just learn this new tool set, but the next one and the next one. And all of those need to be linked to the strategic goals of the organization. As Charlene says, this isn't just some exercise of the latest tool set. This is a chance to rethink, what is the strategy of the organization? What are its values? How are all those connected to the work of the organization? And how does this tool set allow us to be able to leapfrog into new models and meet the needs of our next customers? Next, please. So that's mindset. Skill set is how each of us as human beings apply our human energies. And what we find is that we've got this tremendous tool set that allows us to experiment, that allows us to solve problems in ways we never have before. If we didn't think of ourselves as that great writer before, now we suddenly have this assistant that can give us suggestions, that can workshop our ideas and help us to be able to hone the kinds of content that we want to create. It allows us to, if we never thought of ourselves as designers, if we never thought of ourselves as being particularly innovative, to be able to throw new ideas out, to ask for new ideas and new questions that we would never have thought of before. And then again, to be able to link that with others. And where we see this happening in organizations that are starting to adopt this tool set is in workflows. I've often said work is just three things: human skills applied to tasks to solve problems. And those tasks, those workflows, we find that we can actually become far more effective in our work. And then finally, next please, the tool set. Tool sets are always a combination of techniques and technologies. It's the steps we go through to solve problems, and then it's the technologies that support those processes. And again, we've got this next generation tool set that allows us to be able to come up with new ideas, to be able to workshop those ideas, to be able to use techniques like design thinking on steroids and rapid prototyping in real time, leveraging these technologies to come up with solutions that we might never have envisioned or dreamed of before. So I'm going to stop there. I think actually this sets the table for how we then think of this in the way we collaborate with others. The mindset, skill set, and tool set is how it works great from the individual standpoint, and especially the mindset, the culture that links to the organization. But then how do we as teams, how do we as large groups of individuals, how do we collaborate with this new tool set? I'll toss the baton to Michael.
Thank you so much, Gary. That was wonderful. Great overview of how that shift is occurring and how it influences each of the triadic, kind of almost like the the framework of every organization is touched by AI. And so that's a great segue to the whole concept of collaboration. And I think this concept of an AI-powered organization really is all about collaboration. And we have Brad Rochefort, who's the director of strategy at CoLabs, who is our AI toolset guru. He has, if 2023 was really the year of individual tools and just getting on them and understanding them, out of the gate in January into February, Brad has already figured out ways to kind of uniquely put them together in interesting sequences to create like novel workflows to bring a problem that might come in that would take you 8 hours and you can get it done in under 30 minutes. Over to you, Brad, to tell us on how, and this comes from Charlene, how this is a really good news story that you're going to horizontally augment your workforce with AI.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Charlene. So glad to have so many people in the room. This is great to be talking about AI. As I see it, this is like talking about the internet in the late 90s. There were people who knew about it and people who thought about it, but the people who did something about it are the people that you know today to be successful. So it was great that Charlene set the table for us in a way that she's been seeing, as she said, through decades of research and experience in the consulting field in business and education, and as an author, how disruption is a mindset that we have to adopt and be aware of. So when someone says, what AI tools do you recommend? My answer is yes. I recommend AI tools. If you walked into a hardware store or a Home Depot and you said, do you recommend tools? The answer would be yes, of course we do. This is how we get work done. And so what AI tools do I recommend? I recommend you start somewhere. And the answer where you start with is literacy. It's not just a matter of saying, I'm going to use this tool or that tool. As you can see in the slide here, the skills that got you there, which is ladder climbing through the organizations of your career, you can see the man there is climbing the ladder. The skills that got you up the ladder, they won't get you there once you're at the top of that ladder, because as you see in the picture here, this man is just at the top of an empty ladder and there's no building around him. The tools that you're going to use today will help amplify your workforce, and they're going to use AI in novel ways. As you can see in the interlocking gears here, you need to work together with AI and help it augment who you are and what you do. So as you'll hear from Roy, who's going to speak after I speak, we're not looking to replace people with AI. We're looking to replace the tools you use with AI tools. And one of the ways that we conceptualize it is strategy. As Gary was saying, it's a change in the mindset. It's a change in the way you think. And this, just by circumstance and coincidence, this 45-second video came my way yesterday. I shared it with the team this morning, and we just popped it in because I think it's really fun. This is going to be from 2007, and these are some words from the Microsoft CEO when he was first introduced to the iPhone. So I know sometimes with Zoom, it takes a minute for the screen share to populate. It's about 45 seconds. I'm going to start and play.
Yeah, you're on the wrong screen, Brad.
Thank you for telling me that. Somehow I had a different screen share. So we'll do that properly. I would have thought I had it there. How about that one? You got that one?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is Steve Ballmer, and someone asked him, what was your first reaction when you saw the iPhone? So the context of this is, what kind of strategy are we using when it comes to AI?
$500 fully subsidized with a plan? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine. Now, it may sell very well or not. We have our strategy. We've got great Windows mobile devices in the market today. You can get a Motorola Q phone now for $99. It's a very capable machine. It'll do music. It'll do internet. It'll do email. It'll do instant messaging. So I kind of look at that and I say, well, I like our strategy. I like it a lot.
So as you can get a laugh from that, you have to be aware of what strategy you're using. And if your strategy is just, will do just fine, I've got news for you. There is a whole world of shift happening. Marty's got some information to pop in the slide in the chat there. One of the stats I'd quote is that the AI software market is expected to go from 64 billion to 250 billion in the next 3 years, right? It's unfathomable how many new tools are coming and the dollars that will be spent on it. So the question is, what tool should I use? The answer remains yes, you need some tools. A friend of mine phoned me up the other day, a colleague, a very smart person, very learned, very accomplished, very successful, and he was telling me the problems he was going through. And I said, well, are you using AI? And he kind of mumbled like, oh, I'd sort of pushed it through ChatGPT, and I walked him through a workflow. I said, as like Michael and the next CoLabs team have known, I've spent I did my accounting the other day. I've spent some time and money on AI tools, let me tell you. I have tried them all, but in doing so, I found workflows the same way, you build a house, not just with a ladder, or not just with a hammer, or not just with a measuring tape. Yes, those are tools, and yes, they have their times and places. But as Gary was saying, when you want to climb the mountain, you need to have the best tools. So I said to my friend, well, are you searching with this? Are you contextualizing with that? Are you, shaping the way you talk with this? And he was blown away. And like I said, this is a very accomplished person. So having a strategy starts with literacy. And again, the next CoLabs team has seen my diagrams of the ladder. The bottom rung of the ladder or the mountain climb is literacy. All right. So when you say, what tool should I use? Well, the first tool you should use is reading or learning or talking with people or being part of a community or hiring someone if you don't have that internally, and saying, how are we literate on what is happening now, what is coming soon, and what matches our strategy? Charlene's our strategy expert in terms of internal corporate change. And when she has the ability to show you what you can reach in the next 90 days, in the next quarter, in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, in the next 18 months, you say, can I train for that? Can I do this with off-the-shelf tools? And then can I get a proactive strategy that lets me reach perhaps up to talent strategy, perhaps out to custom strategy? Michael.
Thank you so much, Brad. And I'm just going to focus on this concept of literacy as like the beginning of the ladder climb through a series of stages. And I'm really excited to have Roy kind of bring everything home to something that he's surfaced as CEO. He's been a CEO throughout his whole career. And of course, AI, he sees this as a huge inflection point. And from his point of view, how do you develop literacy? It's through the power of practice. Over to you, Roy. Really excited to hear your vision.
Sure. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Gary, Charlene, and Brad for your inputs and thoughts. And thank you all for coming. It's great to share what we're working on with you today. If you want to pop over to the first slide there, around the age of exponentials, and I think Marty will drop into the chat a little piece that I wrote for our blog late last year. And the reason I bring it up is that we collectively have very bad intuition around scale. In fact, I often tell people million, billion, trillion in seconds. A million is about 12 days. A billion takes you up to 32 years. A trillion takes you to almost 32,000 years, right? And most people go, wait, huh? And that's because English is very linear, million, billion, trillion. But the reality is we are riding an exponential curve, and we're not really good at comprehending what that means. An exponential curve looks like a hockey stick, if you're not familiar. And what it means is that's very boring for a very long time. The term AI originates in like the late 50s, mid to late 50s. And not a lot happened for a very long time. And we entered the elbow as we entered 2023. And what we're seeing everywhere is an explosion of technology. And what I really tell people is you got big data and scale processing. And we're finally able to extract the signal from the noise. And this exponential technology is hitting everywhere, but it's definitely uber present as of 2023 in LLMs and generative AI. And it's not going away. So the part of bringing exponentials to the forefront is to just say that on this curve, there's kind of no going back, right? The technology is not going to degrade in some way. So that's why Next CoLabs is here. We're not about building AI or the Cambrian explosion of tools in that regard. We're about putting it into practice. How do you put AI tools into practice in your organization? And we talk about 5 key pillars. You'll know, if you don't know, this is based on Daniel Pink's work, a book called Drive, which is, what motivates us. And the foundation there is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And when you combine those, you enter a state of flow. And what AI will enable is more flow amongst us as we do our work. Brad was just talking a bit about collaboration, and all of this comes together as what we consider to be the foundation of how you implement AI into an organization to make everyone more productive. And the two prongs we talk about, there's augmentation at the top of the knowledge economy. How do we make people more prolific, more creative? How do they engage with a new thought partner that is a non-human thought partner? And then there's automation. What are the routine, tedious tasks that you can just offload to an AI now that you never really could in the past? We don't believe actually that jobs are going to be lost to AI. Tasks will be lost to AI. The routine tasks that are pretty much the same every time you do it, that's going to get sent to an AI, and that's going to help you augment your output on the top of the stack. Go to the next one. So for us, this is, in fact, I already said it, it's a new thought partner, right? This is about putting it into practice. There's an image here of a guy who looks like he's alone in the office, but the reality is he's got a few AI thought partners working with him on a project, and he's lost all sense of time. He is basically in flow, creating dynamically with thought partners, and there's probably even other humans on the other sides of those screens, right? So this is really about collaboration at a deeper level that is enhanced by a new tool that enhances your mental output and capacity. I often talk about AI as extended RAM for yourself. We don't have it yet, but I'll predict right now we're within 3 years, maybe max 5 years, to a persistent personal AI who hears what you hear, sees what you see, reads what you read, and you'll be able to say, hey, who was that guy I was talking to last month? And he brought up that book and we were talking about blah, blah, blah. And your AI will say, yeah, oh yeah, that was Joe. And that was a Zoom call you had. And this was the book. Would you like me to buy it? Yeah, I would like you to buy it. So this is about putting all of this into practice, right? And what we do at Next CoLabs is, and in fact, I wrote this in the chat, just in response to someone, we put the foundational academic rigor and knowledge that Charlene and Gary have brought to the world through their books, both past and future coming, and put it into practice. So how do you implement AI into your organization? This is, and again, I think someone else mentioned in the chat, if there was one message of 2023, it's the person with AI is going to outcompete the person without AI. That much we know to be true. And this team at Next CoLabs, through the Next Collective and our organization, has really been swimming at the bottom of the AI pool for over a year now. And we know how to take these tools and make it happen. And that's what we're here to do.
Absolutely exciting story, Roy. Just this idea that even Next CoLabs and absolutely loves this team, and I hope everyone else is enjoying these talks and this discussion. As a company for the past year, 2023, we meet 3 times a week as a team for 2 hours, and we've been training up with these tools. And at the end of 2023, I believe we come out the back end as an AI-powered innovation company. And then, so in a way, we walk the walk. We know what it's like to be AI-powered. We're playing with that sort of field effect. And I think this is part of maybe what we need to discuss is the good news story relative to what does your team look like when they're powered or augmented with these tool sets, and then your whole team is trained up on them. Imagine the power of that. Perhaps, Charlene, you might want to comment on that.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have just a basic AI literacy inside of the organization. It's one of the foundational things. If you don't understand how it works, then it's really hard to drive a strategy and adoption. So one of the things I constantly survey people is, okay, you think it's going to be very transformational. How much are you using it yourself? How much does it transform the work that you actually do? I know that I usually have 3 tabs open for 3 different chatbots that I use, including Perplexity. I own my own private LLM. It has completely transformed the way I work. And so if people are like, oh, I've used it once or twice, I'm not really that familiar with the tools, and they haven't personally transformed the work they do, and especially if your executives have not done this, then it's very difficult to imagine having a strategy or understanding how it's going to be so transformative. So that literacy is absolutely key.
So Michael, I have a couple of questions from the audience. Can we go there?
Let's do it. Yeah,
Okay.
excited.
This is Marty speaking. The first question is from Bob Wald. How do you get everyone in your organization up to speed with data analytics, machine learning, Gen AI, and the much larger AI? This is the most important focus to get all aligned with terms, methods, and ways to use their unique skills collaboratively. So he has a broad question. Who would like to take that one?
I think, Charlene, in terms of your 90-day AI strategy roadmap, you've got to block that all into a roadmap and a plan. Tell us about how you would maneuver or steer that.
Yeah, the very first core group of people are the ones you initially think are going to be involved in setting those foundational parts. So somebody from business, ideally HR, is always usually somebody who's missing, but HR is very important. IT, clearly, product, and then the most senior person who is interested and available to do this. Ideally, is the CEO, because it is so transformative. But that literacy has to begin there. The one thing I really encourage people to do is to treat prompts as IP, meaning the way you use prompts and the way you provide context is extremely important, because that becomes really important intellectual property about how you can use these tools best inside of your organizational context. So using a chatbot isn't very interesting, but when you can put it behind a firewall, preload it with your company's strategy, with your brand guidelines, it suddenly becomes an incredible thought partner. And how you use these tools to do very specific tasks and influence new responsibilities and jobs becomes the roadmap for how you put your strategy together. So those prompt things are extremely important for training in particular.
Creating a council within your organization, sort of like the Center for Excellence or a council.
Yeah, and I think that initial team will look at the whole high-level strategy, bring in people, and then once you know where your biggest areas of opportunity are, you start putting your AI council together, cross-departmental, and with extended teams that can actually execute and pull together this larger, more detailed strategy of how you're going to achieve everything. The AI council is that coordinating function across the entire organization. Because again, AI is really good at automating and reducing very similar tasks that may be common across different departments. And unless you can share that knowledge very quickly, you're not going to be able to harness it as well as you could.
Marty, do you want to?
Okay, and I have another question. Michael McGrush, he frames this as a human-centric question. How can AI support to find, discover any humans, one of oneness of 8 billion unique humans with each having a unique life perspective, look at your family, or can it not? And he has an add-on question to that, which I'll give you now. How can we make sure that AI does not generalize us more by making us even more system-relevant worker bees? Will AI be able to uncover our uniqueness? I think Gary is going to answer this one.
Yeah, this one seems obvious, Gary. Go it.
So yeah, this would be qualified as a softball, I guess, for me, since it's the kinds of topics that I write about regularly. So first off, Michael, just wonderful questions. So you've actually pointed out to some of the risks. I mean, I always talk about the yin and yang, the light and dark side of exponential technologies, and the artificial intelligence tools are no different. So what would we love if everything went well for humans? We would love it if every single human on the planet had a deep understanding of their own skills, their own interests. We often call this self-inventory in life work planning, but the whole idea is that every single one of us should understand what makes us unique, should understand what our superpowers are or could be, and have the support to be able to develop those. And in an ideal world, the AI tools that we use would be dedicated to helping us in those processes. That's not where a lot of the tool set focus has been, up until this point, in terms of helping people to be able to get better understandings and insights into themselves. But I believe there'll be more and more of those tools as time goes on. And then the other part of the dynamic that you're talking about is then how each of us become more connected, because there could be a future where each of us is spending all this time talking to our AI tools and not to each other. And I think that's a fail for humanity. So wouldn't it be nice if we actually are build better connections? And that's another area that I'm deeply focused on. I mentioned in the chat line, there's a company called Acaso that I'm a senior advisor for, and we believe we're building the community operating system for organizations and communities. But I believe that the tools actually have tremendous potential for helping us not only to understand our own uniqueness, but to be able to connect to others much more authentically, to be able to build better relationships, to be able to build great teams, to be able to solve new problems. And all of those are opportunities that we as humans have to double down on. That is, it's not going to happen unless we point to the tool developers to the opportunities to be able to build those kinds of capabilities.
Roy, maybe you could comment on that as well, relative to something we talked
And
about.
I want to say something to that too, because that wasn't clear. Because system relevance is always complicated. Human centricity is always simple. In human centricity, everybody wins. In system relevance, there's a winner and a loser. And if you win, all lose. Still, if you win. So any system relevance that has not human-centric value or function, all humans lose. I can talk to.
So Michael, yeah, well, I mean, we can take that offline. There's a debate there. So, right, as to how you define a system versus a human system, right? At the end of the day,
nature.
Yeah. So nature is a complex computational system, right? That is not unlike. I mean, this is nature, right? This all evolved, but we can talk about that at another time, Michael, to get into.
I might interject, since we've got so many interesting questions, and I don't want to leave anybody out. Mark Zitter had a question talking about the heavily regulated healthcare industry. Unfortunately, Harvey Castro isn't here today, but the education fields. Innovative companies have consistently predicted disruption from technologies that could cause transformational change, but have failed when they run into the buzzsaw of regulation and human inertia. We remember all of this from the internet, right? And why and how will AI be different than anything in the past? The size of the opportunity and ease of use have not proven the keys in the past. A question from Mark Zitter. Who would like to take this question? Brad.
Yeah, I will say that right now there's 90 people talking through the internet, all from our own locations. The internet has absolutely changed the way we do things. Nothing exists in a perfect state, but we have shifted so far from what looked like before the internet to now that we even ask questions like that in earnest. We say to ourselves, well, the internet didn't really work or it didn't get us there. And I'm like, well, sure it did, because I'm here in real time, in full color and sound and picture with many, many, many people across time and space. So AI is going to do the same thing. It's going to take us places where we just take it for granted. And then we look back on it and go, it wasn't what I imagined. And that's the nature of the car, the airplane, almost anything that's out there, is that it becomes so ubiquitous, it's hard to see it for what it is. The internet has shifted near everything we do. Most people are paperless, most people are wireless, most people are remote in today's workforce. AI is going to be the same thing. The tools from the larger companies and the tools from the unique smaller companies are going to find their bandwidth. They're going to find their place in our toolkit, and they will become so commonplace we'll only see small pieces of them. The way right now, I'm not seeing the thousands of engineers and software programs that have created this to send electricity from you to me and me to you.
Yeah, I think the other important thing to add on to it, exactly, Brad, I completely agree. I would add on, this is as bad as AI will ever be. We are at version 1.0. Like, and I don't know if you got the first iPhone, but my first iPhone was thick and heavy and a very bad phone at the time. Like, it wasn't particularly good. You know, we are a year, 2 years into this new wave as we enter the elbow. And that's part of our message also, is that, you know, this is going to not only move fast, but move faster over time. And getting on board early in the practice of it. Again, this is practice. You know, after the Olympian wins the gold medal, what do? They go back to the gym. They keep practicing. This is one of those things that is a continuous process. And getting on the bandwagon is part of the important thing, I think, to not be left behind.
You know, people are wondering where to get started, and there's lots of ways to get started. Charlene started with some ways of process and methods, but this is about tools, Brad. This is an insight question I would call from Robert Monaco. I find that having my goals and intentions figured out first, then I think about how I might use AI to improve my flow and productivity. I think we can all experience that. But first, I need to start experimenting and try as many AI tools as I could get my hands on. I looked at tools for contracts, research, writing. So you need to get literate on all of those. So really the question there is, I've seen in the chat, people are overwhelmed by the number of tools, Brad. How does one get started with these robust list of tools?
I mean, in short, I'd say join next CoLabs, reach out. You know, this is what we do. The answer is not simple. But to give like a more fulsome answer, find one that works for you and sit with it comfortably. All right. One of the tools I like that I got from Charlene is Jasper. And Jasper has a recommendation to do part of what was asked in the question, which is to address the software directly and say, here is my overall goal. Help me achieve a sense of purpose or a sense of direction, and engage it in a conversation. The best thing I tell people is that it is a conversation to be had, not an instant answer. These softwares are not mind readers. They're not in the room with you. We like to say it's the Marvel Iron Man movie and it's Jarvis. It's this magical, you know, sentient being that's your best friend. Maybe soon. But today, what you can do is just hear who people are talking about, whether it's Google or whether it's OpenAI, and just start there. And don't imagine that you're ever going to get to peak performance alone. Join people, join a community, join Roy and Michael and Gary and Charlene and Marty and the rest of the team. Communities where you'll find those answers, which is part of why the group of us are here today, is because over the last year or two or three, we have found ourselves growing through community.
Yeah. One thing I'd add to that also is there is a distinct shift from skill set towards mindset. And what I mean by that is, in the past, I had to train. I couldn't drop you into Adobe Photoshop and expect you to figure it out. Like, there's a menu system and there's all these different functions and features and blah, blah, blah. Most technology up until 2022, 23 required some reskilling, retraining to be able to effectively use the tool. We are now presented with a chat box, right? So it's more about your mindset and the questions you ask and the context you give it. So interacting with a chat bot or any LLM clean is very different than telling the LLM, here's who I am. Here's who you are. Here's some PDFs about what I do. Here's the problem that I have. Like, the more context you put in, the more we shift our mindset to an interaction with a thought partner versus a skill set where I need to know how to do. So for instance, I think prompt engineering is going away. Like, it's going to get better and better at just interacting with you on the level of your language. And really shifting our mindset into one of practice versus one of skills and training, if that makes sense.
Okay, so here's a question that comes up all the time and we have not addressed yet today. I am concerned about data privacy. How do organizations protect their IP? Do they all create their own GPTs like Charlene, yet still have the broader capabilities of the learning language models like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, etc.? Who would like to take that one? How do we protect our IP?
Yeah, I mean, look, the IP issue is real. It is also a drop in the bucket. Like the idea that, so let me put it this way. Any LLM in the world right now doesn't have a cut and paste function. There is no copy paste. In fact, if there was, IP would be a real problem. Like we would have copyright issues all over the place. It doesn't know that. All it's doing is learning. So the learning part of this probabilistic word model that we interact with is less about stealing IP or now let's say you have some very specific IP that it is learning and then applying elsewhere. Okay, I would be careful. But if you're thinking that your strategy is important to the LLM or that some other person is going to gain value from the LLM learning about your strategy, like it's not going to be able to ask about your company's strategy. That's not a thing. It doesn't do that. That said, I mean, we have LLMs. I don't know if you know Ethan Mollick, great guy to follow. He just published, there's a little box that has an LLM in a box. It's not even an LLM on your laptop. It's an LLM in a box. So the idea that you could privatize your LLM, certainly, no question. You can have a large language model that runs locally without an issue.
This one is more of it's a mindset issue, but it's not the tool set type mindset. It's more of the mindset of how do we handle this resistance to AI within the organization, and what would be representative of a good sample project to get started as a prototype to convince the rest of the organization to hop on board or another executive to hop on board.
Charlene?
I think, again, one of the most powerful things, and Brad was talking about this, is having a conversation with it. And so using it as a thought partner, you can use it to like write things. That's the easiest thing. But I think the transformational moment is when you realize that this can be an absolutely key part of your team. So if you're in sales, analyze my last call meeting, the summary of my notes. How can I improve? If we're in a marketing function, here's our current strategy. Here's a current customer we're trying to reach. How can we improve what we're doing? What are the biggest flaws that you have? So using it as a query, you're not asking it to write anything that you're going to put out there. It's using it in its most powerful way as a thought partner. And it is transformational to see the impact of that when you realize how powerful it can be.
I want to add, yes, and to that, I want to add, part of the reason we're here talking about AI today is what we've been talking about, generative AI, which is generating some content that was artificial and in part intelligent, means like it's meaningful and sensical. But there are other facets to this diamond that is AI that as a group we want to make you aware of, that includes the way you operate with your customers, marketing, sales, engineering of software and research and development, the ability to take an exponential leap, or like a small square, large square, square the size of the room, your sales, your growth, your company's efficiency, they're all in flux right now, where the ability to capture a new tool, create a new tool, or combine new tools can give you this power. Gary's helping us understand that a mindset of growth, and Charlene's helping us understand that a disruptive mindset, and Roy's helping us understand that practicing amongst these tools, and Michael shows us the community power. Put together, the facets of the diamond are: AI makes you part of a community, disrupt your mindset, practice it, understand the tools do more than just create words. They can shorten the gap between now and customers, between now and research, between now and sales, between now and development, that it's much, much more than an image on screen or a set of texts or a set of prompts. These tools are shortening the gap of labor. And if you empower your current workforce, you will empower your organization's ability to exist in the future.
So
That's a great way to
about the
bring it
time
in.
where we're wrapping up. So I'm turning it over to Michael now to do
Yeah, if you could,
wrap
that
up
would be
and to
great.
talk
And
about the future.
now that was a great wrap, Brad. Really appreciate it. And I guess, we come back to this kind of central question that we've surfaced within our own community and within our own company over the course of 2023, when we realized that we are now walking the walk. We are an AI-powered innovation company. And if you're interested in doing the same, reach out to us. There's a link in the chat to book a call with myself or with Roy. Get to know your company and develop a kind of process and roadmap on how you might onboard over the course of getting into this sort of practice. It's a process to become an AI-powered company. That's number one. Number two, within the next 2 weeks, we're going to hold what we call a CoLabs, which effectively is an executive learning lab for 1 hour, same time, same place, probably in 2 weeks. Stay tuned. We have you all on our email list, and you can jump in and get a feeling for how we roll relative to this concept of the power of practice. I think that's the key on staying ahead of continuous disruption and surfing the tsunami and taking your company and your teams and your organizations into the next generation of your business. Thank you to all the panelists and talk. They're absolutely wonderful. Love this team, and thank you so much for coming to today's session. All the best, and hopefully we'll catch up with you on the other side. Cheers.